Hello, I would like to present the application that we were able to create during the health hackathon that occurred in Vancouver at the beginning of June. In the application is to do an initial interview with a child that was abused. And so it captures information about the interview that happened and also will help guide the interviewer through the question that he should ask the child, the question that he shouldn't ask the child. And so typically the user for this application would be a doctor, a nurse, a social worker, maybe a teacher as well, somebody who had training with child abuse. And so today we'll do an interview with, say, a child that is called Sam, so a young 5-year-old boy. And so once I recorded this basic information, I would just start the interview. At the very beginning, the application warns the interviewer that there should be basic needs that needs to be fulfilled to do this interview. And in particular, there should be an advocate for the child. So if it's a doctor doing the interview, maybe a nurse can also come and will only look after the needs of the child and not the need of the interviewer. So we always want to put the child first, make sure that the child is comfortable through the interview. So let's start the interview. So here what we see is, let's focus on the left hand side. Here I would normally, so I want to record the interview, so I would actually just show Sam that there's an interview process that occurs where we would normally be sitting, the physician and the child are sitting side by side, and the video, maybe the video cameras in an iPad or an iPhone, would show that I'm recording, and also since having the actual recording process on the screen would be distracting, we can just hide it so that Sam is not distracted by the recording and continue on with the interview. I can always just bring it back, but today what I'll just do is not actually record ourselves, just show how to process the interview shows up. So on the right side of the screen, what I see are these age-appropriate questions that I would ask Sam. So what I see is the first two foundational questions are who and what, and that the child should always be answered. So starting with a 5-year-old child will be able to answer who committed the abuse and what happened during that abuse. And a typical 5-year-old child will also be able to answer where. So we can display these three questions are highlighted, saying that the 5-year-old child will be able to answer this. And then the next question, this question for when, is typically a 5-year-old child will not be able to answer this, or will probably not be able to answer when. And so it is up to the discretion of the interviewer that you should ask this question or not. But what happens afterwards, a typical 5-year-old child will never be able to answer questions such as, was there a witness, or what was a trigger for the event, or what was the first time an abuse took place. So these questions are not part of the interview, so they're displayed, but the interviewer cannot interact with them. And yes, so the questions, these who, what, where questions are, and which age, are based on psychological evidence about when can we expect a child to be able to answer these questions. The last detail before I start with the interview, there's also a button here, just SA, that stands for sexual abuse. And if sexual abuse occurs, then we will force the user to be limited to ask questions about who and what. So if sexual abuse occur, we want to ask much fewer questions to the child. In this case, that is not what occurred to Sam. They just follow the process of who and what. So typically when you would start asking questions, you would ask questions about who occurred, and when Sam answers this question, the interviewer would just click on the who button and displays some information. So it displays, well, who has been talked about, and say a little bit afterwards we talk about what happened, the interviewer would click on what. So here this does two different things. This gives two different types of information. First, it reminds the interviewer about what has been talked so far. So far there's only been two questions, the who question and the what question. And also guides the interviewer, well, normally after you ask who and what, you should be talking about where an event occurred. And so this gives the flow of how the interviewer question should go. The question is going from, as we're reading a page of a book, from left to right and going down. So who, what, where, and then if it's appropriate, you can ask Sam when these events occur. It is also quite probable that Sam might start talking about a second abuse that happened with somebody else. So you could always go back and click, oh, there was a second talk about who. So this is one part of the information. So help guide the interviewer to the question that he should ask the child. The second thing that it does is whenever the interviewer clicks on a who question, a who, what, where button, it also puts a timestamp on the video file so that the interviewer can see the video at a later time and record, okay, say from minute 1 to 2 he was talking about who, from minute 2 to 4 he was talking about what happened, and this will help the physician get a good overview of how the interview went and what information was collected. And so yes, so maybe at minute 7 now he's talking about what, minute 8 he was talking about a second event, and so this is recorded. So the way the screen is made out is to balance recording information, guiding the interviewer, but not distracting the interviewer. So there's a minimum amount of feedback the interviewer has to give the computer so that the interviewer can continue on. So now we were done with asking Sam the basic questions. The very last question we should always ask a child is asking him if he has more to say, if he has any concerns, and this should always be asked. So saying maybe he has concerns about who will be able to see the recording, and you should be able to answer these questions. And so now so the interview is finished, and now we'll just go, are you done with the interview? Yes, we are. And the next step is to capture any bruises if there are any. So here we ask to just capture 3 basic types of pictures, just a picture of the bruise itself, maybe a front picture and a profile picture. And we're using here the ABFU number 2 scale to capture the size of the wound. So here we'll just take a picture, and let's just turn on the camera. And here we'll just take a picture of the actual wound that occurs. So this is where an iPad or iPhone comes in handy. We can take a much better picture. And here I would ask, well, is this picture adequate, or yes or no? And say, let's say this picture for me is adequate. And now the next photo we need to do is a front picture. But for today, let's not do this. And the next thing we want to talk about is, well, once we've captured all this information, what should we do? So next things I would just click send and send the information to Child Protection Services. So the send functionality for us right now only does one thing. Maybe the most important is that it takes the information and deletes it. We want to make sure that the information was guarded. So after the information to be sent, no information should be on the iPad or the iPhone or whatever was used to record the information. So it will be sent and protected somewhere that's protected. And exactly how this information will be sent will be based on what the community needs. If the Child Protection Service allows to use Wi-Fi, then it might be stored on a server. If it doesn't, then we would have an plug-in interface so that you would plug in your iPad, plug in the computer, and just download the images this way. So the actual send functionality will be depending on what the local Child Protection Services require. Okay, so this was a basic demo of our project that we made for the Health Hackathon. Thank you.